Have you ever wondered how world leaders actually practice for a global crisis? I mean, it's not all just reading briefings. Sometimes it's a game. A very, very serious game where the fate of nations is literally on the line. And today, we're going to go inside one of these high-stakes geopolitical war games. Look, this is way more than just an academic exercise. You can think of it as a strategic crucible, a high-pressure lab designed to forge leaders. By simulating a world that's right on the brink, it tests their ability to think clearly and act decisively when the stakes could not be higher. So how does a game like this actually work? Here's our game plan. First, we'll get into the core concept. Then we'll meet the players and understand the power they're wielding. After that, we'll break down the decision-making framework. And finally, we'll see how a crisis spirals toward its endgame. At its heart, a geopolitical war game is really just a safe place to practice for incredibly unsafe situations. It lets national security teams test out different strategies, anticipate consequences, and just get a feel for the dynamics of a fast-moving crisis, all without any real-world repercussions.
Yeah, this is not about who has the most tanks or planes on some virtual battlefield. It's about a nation's total ability to navigate a super complex crisis. It's a test of everything, from your diplomatic maneuvering and economic moves to the sheer nerve of your leadership team when they're under immense pressure.
All right, so who's actually at the table, and what kind of power are they working with? Let's meet the players and break down the resources that fuel every single one of their decisions. The whole scenario is set in the Indo-Pacific. On one side, you've got the blue team. That's an alliance of the Republic of China, Taiwan, the US, Japan, Korea, and the South China Sea claimant states. And facing off against them is the red team, represented by the People's Republic of China. Okay, so the ultimate score in this game is all measured in something called influence points, or IP. Just think of this as your global reputation, your street cred. Every single action, every statement, it all affects your IP. The goal isn't just to survive, it's to come out of the crisis with your international standing stronger than before. Next up, resource points, or RP. This is basically the currency of power in the game. It's like your national budget for each turn. You want to launch a diplomatic campaign, move your military? That's going to cost you RP. Every single action has a price, and if you mismanage this finite resource, you're in big trouble. And, of course, you've got military power, which is represented by force factors, or FF. But this isn't just about counting soldiers and ships. The game abstracts the total strength of a nation's armed forces, blending the raw number of troops with their level of technology and modernization. A smaller, high-tech force can easily be more powerful than a larger, less advanced one. And this brings us to the absolute core strategic choice that players have to make every single turn. Do you spend your precious resource points on immediate actions, things like joint exercises or sanctions, to project power right now? Or do you make long-term investments in stuff like new technology to build up your strength for the future? It's a constant, high-stakes balancing act. So we've met the players and we've seen their resources. But how does the game actually structure their decisions, especially when they're under the extreme stress of a crisis? Let's take a look at the framework that governs every single move. I mean, really think about it. Put yourself in their shoes. The information you have is incomplete, the stakes are sky high, and the clock is ticking. How do you make the right call? This is the central challenge that the simulation forces these players to confront head-on. The answer is a structured framework. The game is built around something called the OODA loop, a really famous concept from military strategy. It's a four-step process. First, you observe what's happening. Then you orient yourself by analyzing all the data and figuring out what it means. Then you decide on what to do. And finally, you act. The cycle just keeps repeating, allowing teams to adapt on the fly. And here's exactly how they put that OODA loop theory into practice. Every turn follows a strict 6-step process. It kicks off with red signaling their intent. Then some unexpected global events get thrown in. Then blue makes their moves, and red responds. Finally, all the nations issue their official responses, and the game gives everyone a summary of the new state of the world. This structure imposes a rhythm on the chaos. Now, this simulation isn't just one static event. Oh no. It is designed to evolve dynamically, moving through these distinct phases where the tension and the stakes just keep getting higher and higher. The crisis actually unfolds over 4 phases. It starts with gray zone conflict. Subtle provocations, actions that fall just below the line of open war. Then it escalates to hybrid warfare, blending all kinds of different tactics.
Phase 3 is a full crisis, maybe even a regional quarantine, and it all leads up to Phase 4, where the entire focus shifts to international conflict resolution.
Now, what's really fascinating about this is that winning requires two completely different skill sets. The first three phases are what's called the competitive arena. This is all about tactical skill, managing your resources, outmaneuvering your opponent. But Phase 4? That's the diplomatic endgame. And here, the game completely shifts to persuasion, to building coalitions, and to drafting a resolution that can actually win broad international support. So after all that, how is a winner actually declared? Well, it's not just about who has the most influence points. The final score is a weighted average. Your raw performance, your IP growth, that's only 20%. The quality of your decision-making process is 30%. And, crucially, half of the entire score comes from a final vote on your proposed resolution. In the end, you don't just have to win the game. You have to win over the audience.
And to make sure this stays firmly grounded in reality, the simulation uses cutting-edge real-world intelligence. For example, players might have to deal with the strategic challenge of a shadow navy. This is a concept where a nation basically weaponizes its civilian fishing fleet to create this ambiguous, scalable threat. These aren't just made-up problems, they're active factors in modern defense planning.
This all brings us to one final big question. The entire simulation is built around conflict, pressure, and strategic competition, but its ultimate goal is to create leaders who are better prepared to manage crises and, hopefully, find paths to resolution. So, can practicing for the worst-case scenario actually make us better at achieving the best one? That's the real challenge at the heart of this ultimate strategy game.